Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on Digit 360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.
It all started 42 days ago in a small town called Chibok in southern Borno State, where over 200 schoolgirls were abducted. Now, it was a new dimension to the actions of what we call terrorist attacks by that deadly sect, Boko Haram. It used to be suicide bombing, it used to be kidnapping in small pockets. But this time around, we had a large number of Nigerian schoolgirls abducted in Chibok Secondary School. Now, that seems to change the tide. It seems to change the ocean current because it sparkled a lot of reactions across board. Just a few days when that hashtag Bring Back Our Girls hit Twitter, it had about 5 million people talking about it already. And that, of course, inspired the Paris summit that featured not only the French president and Goodluck Jonathan, but heads of Chad, Niger, Benin, and Cameroon. And there's been a lot of talk about international commitment all the way from the US to the UK. Even China is involved. But 42 days afterwards, the bottom line is the girls are still somewhere. Some say it's Sambisa Forest, some say it's outside Nigeria. And on the show today, Cold Digest, we're finding out if negotiation is the way out. We're joined now by Chief Martin ONOVO. Now, Chief Martin ONOVO, he's a politician, a political analyst, as well as being a presidential candidate on the Action Alliance Party in 2011. Welcome, Chief, and thank you for finding time to join us.
Thank you very much.
And also we have Dr. Ray Ashe Nemwe, as a national president, Secure Our Votes Group. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning to you.
Thank you for finding time to join us.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's start with you, Chief. If you had won election in 2011, there's possibility that you'll be Mr. President as we speak right now. Now, if you were in this situation where over 200 schoolgirls have been abducted, I want you to answer this question in two folds. As a father who has a daughter abducted 42 days afterwards, would you be considering negotiation? And if you had been Mr. President, would you consider negotiation as we speak today?
Well, you have asked a very deep question, and you can't get a simple answer. First, I want to state that this did not happen overnight. It needs to be very clear to us. This was not sudden. It didn't happen overnight. It's just like childbirth. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes about 9 months. This happened after 5 years. 2009 was when Boko Haram became violent. This is 2014. So first is that if I were president, it is impossible to have this situation. It is impossible. Because it didn't happen overnight. The indications were there. The rising criminality, which is politically sponsored, don't forget, I have the evidence. In fact, the entire Nigeria has the evidence. Crime has been sponsored by the rulership. That is documented in the Kayode Shaw Truth and Reconciliation Report for Rivers. It is documented. It's fact. It is the illegitimate and corrupt politically that's been sponsoring crime, this kind of crime. Now, that's number one. Therefore, if for 5 years we continued sponsoring and rewarding crime, what will be the natural consequence? It's an explosion of criminality. That's what we have. So that's first. If I were president, it is impossible to have this situation. Now that we're here, and like I said, do not forget, we didn't get here overnight. We had initially claimed we wanted to negotiate. And later, the commander-in-chief claimed that he couldn't negotiate with faceless people. that Boko Haram was not stepping forward for a negotiation. And while that lasted, Boko Haram got even more violent. Do not forget the Federal Government College, Buniyadi. Those ones have died. Those children, we can't bring them back. We're asking that these ones be brought back because we think they're alive. That's why we're asking that they be brought back. If they're dead, we're going to say, okay, give us the corpses for a decent burial. But the 60 or 59 or whatever number you want to use that were killed in Federal Government College, Buniyadi, that's a Federal Government College, not a private school. My friend, if you become the president of Nigeria, the children of Nigeria become your children. You defend them with your life. That is what it means to be president. President is not a jamboree. It's a responsibility. It's only in Nigeria that people want authority, they don't want the responsibility. I want to be MD. You will not do the work of MD. If you become president, you do the work of president. And that is why I mean that it is impossible to have this situation.
No, what would have been...
Okay, I'm still coming back to the issue of impossibility if you were to be the president. But the question still remains, as a father, would you be considering negotiation? And if you were to be president, is negotiation the way to go? I think that was the question.
No. The question is not that simple. You didn't just get here. Boko Haram is 5 years. You can't ignore the facts. Did we wake up one morning and hear that 200 girls were abducted? According to the commander-in-chief, Boko Haram has killed 12,000 people. Where were you after the first person was killed? We can't trivialize these matters. This is fundamental. Where were you after the first 10 people were killed? Now, you should ask yourself before you give a plan, what's your objective? From the bad place where we are today, which I have put in context, the situation where we are today. You've just announced that they've been 42 days. You couldn't bring them back in the first day, the first 24 hours, when we were sure they were still within the vicinity. You have allowed 42 days for the terrorists to go as far before. Let us use common sense, please. Now, at the point where we are now, if I am president, the priority will be to get those girls back alive. And nothing will be excluded, including exchange, including ransom. If I were president, if we get to this situation, which is impossible. It is impossible. Impossible as in impossible. You cannot. What did Yoweri Museveni say about this situation? He said it's impossible in Uganda. This is impossible in any country. Is Nigeria a country? Nigeria is a jungle, I'm sorry. I'm a Nigerian. And you can't claim to be more patriotic than me. But this is the reality.
It's all right. We'll get back to that. Dr. Ray, let's come to you. Mr. President is insisting that there is no negotiation. That was what made headlines in front of most papers today. What's the rationale behind that? Of course, there's a fight ongoing against terrorism in northern Nigeria. But what is the significance of negotiating for the lives of over 200 girls as it relates to the ongoing fight against terrorism or winning that war against terrorism in northern Nigeria?
I want to say this point blank. I always say it on different TV stations. There is no fight against terrorism because the government we have on ground is illegitimate. And when you get power by illegitimacy,
let us be cautious. You can't call a government that holds illegitimate.
There was an election for crying out loud.
Yeah, there was an election. The question is this. The question is this. How did we get here? How did we get here? These people that are doing this right now, how did they get going? How did they get all these things? How did they get arranged? It is the same people. It's like you riding on the back of a tiger. And when the tiger brings you down, what happened? He turns back to fight against you. So the question is here, is there really fight against terrorism? Whereby the security fund that was given to the police, the question is this, the army that was set there to go and fight the terrorist people, the Boko Haram is even more armed than our army.
Let me give you some statistics. You recall that before the emergency rule in northern East Nigeria, in Borno, for crying out loud, there were certain parts of that state that were already being institutionalized by Boko Haram. They had flags there already. And that's no more with the emergency rule taking place in Borno State. Mr. President said there are about 20,000 foot soldiers in northeastern Nigeria. And of course, the Minister of Finance said in the first quarter of this year, about 130 billion naira have been spent in that direction. How would you say there is no fight going on against against
okay, are you going to tell me that Boko Haram is more powerful than Nigeria? a country of 170 million, a fraction of less than 1,000 or 2,000 or thereabout, is more powerful, prosperous than a country that have 170 people, intellectuals. Somebody here is deceiving each other. There is deception, and we must accept the fact that there is a lot of deception here. 2 days ago, they were talking about lack of funding. Lack of funding. Why the president have over 9 jets, and you're telling me that 200 girls was adopted, and we're still talking about lack of funding here. That means something is wrong somewhere.
Dr. Ray, how does all of these impact on the negotiation question? The fact that Mr. President is insisting that there is no moral justification for exchanging
criminals for the girls.
Criminals for innocent girls. Isn't that some principles too that govern nationhood?
The question here is that if your father, over 42 days right now, you don't even know whereabouts of a child is sent out there to go and get an education so that you can get that family move up to the next level, and the child is nowhere to be found. And let me say this to you. The question is in 2 ways. It's highly tactical. If we should negotiate, that means to say that we are giving more ground to what? To corruption and terrorism. Man, if we don't also negotiate, that means to say the girl will not come back. You understand what I'm saying here?
So where does that put us?
The question here is this. The problem started from what? Leadership. And I at this point in time, Nigerians should be able to come out and say that what should we do at this point in time? And if we must do something, the issue is not even negotiation.
Chief ONOVO, you said if you were to be the president earlier that this would not be possible.
It's a complete, absolute.
There are other countries that pride themselves with democracy, aged democracy since their independence, like the USA, but we still had terrorist attacks.
Okay.
Terrorist attacks are not
It's a global
preempted.
issue.
It's a global issue. So how would you have curbed it? Because before this present administration, we've had attacks before now. Boko Haram just got violence or got prominent 2009. It didn't start with the administration. So how do you think globally terrorists could have been curbed? Because it's not a Nigerian thing.
Okay. The first question, the premise of your question is definitely wrong. A terrorist can strike once. With what capacity? Capacity is developed. You've missed the premise. The premise was this is 5 years old. Has grown. And you didn't listen to the National Security Advisor, who's a retired general. Said this thing should have been stopped a long time ago. So if you don't believe me, at least maybe you believe me. We allowed this thing to grow. You don't get pregnant today and have a baby today.
The question is, how would you have
You have
curbed
wrong
it?
premises. We need to correct your premises. You have made fundamentally wrong assumptions. That terrorism cannot be fought and things like that.
That wasn't the question.
How is Boko Haram funded? After 5 years, answer that question.
I asked the questions here.
Okay, you ask the questions. Okay, ask the right questions. How is Boko Haram funded? When you find the answer to those questions you're asking. That's number one question. Number two, Boko Haram has known camps in Sambisa Forest. Have you attacked it for once? Did you try to isolate it? You cannot continue building a mansion on falsehood. It's going to collapse. It's collapsing. It's collapsing. Doctor talked about the legitimacy of the government. You say, no, don't even go there. Now, we talk about how it first started for 5 years. The National Security Advisor said this thing should have been stopped earlier. General Danjuma, 3 years ago, said this is war, declare war. A few months ago, the Senate President, who is also a retired general, said this is war, let's declare war. We're not even declared war. Doctor just told you that are we even fighting terrorism? You see, you must learn how not to make excuses for failure. Because otherwise what you're going to get is more failure. You must learn that there is effectiveness and there is efficiency. And if you do the right things, you get the right results. And as long as you keep doing the wrong things, you're going to keep doing getting the wrong results and finding excuses. Life expectancy in Nigeria, what it is? What is it? You're talking about money spent on the military. $51 billion, according to financial intelligence, since 1999, spent on power. Where's the power? You spend money on security, and you don't have it. You spend money on power, you don't have it. We cannot continue like this. We continue like this, you are not safe. In this country, you're not safe. I'm not safe at home. You think it's happening up north? Excuse me. Kidnapping going on in Anambra, have you controlled it? What are we talking about? Why do we keep pretending and denying all the realities?
Let's move ahead from here because we do not want to move away from the purview of this discussion. We're asking one question.
Exactly.
If negotiation is the answer to insurgency in Northern Nigeria. Let me show you. Just hold on a little bit, Chief. Doctor, I'm coming to you now. The United Kingdom has kicked against any plan by Nigeria to negotiate with Boko Haram over the kidnapped schoolgirls. But that's not what's coming from the center of it all, Borno State. Governor Kasim Shettima on Thursday asked the federal government to consider the option of negotiating with the Boko Haram sect in the action that would ensure the release of Chibok schoolgirls. And of course, it's not only Kasim Shettima. The chairman of House Committee on Diaspora, Abike Dabiri Erewa, is also saying that Nigerian government should consider negotiation. That's a direct question. I want to ask you, what do you think the government should do now? The problems are evident. That's not what we're talking about here. It's the way forward. Please answer that.
Now, when you look at it from this perspective, talking about negotiation, these people ask you to release their people, criminals, terrorists, killers, murderers, or whatever, what have you, in an exchange of our own daughters. Now, internationally, the UK, you're talking about, even the US, when Osama bin Laden bombed the US, the president promised America that I will track this man down. And he did. And that is what leadership is all about. Leadership is about direction.
Come on.
And when you lack direction in leadership, the country will crumble. And he was the commander-in-chief of that war against terrorism. And he tracked Osama bin Laden down. Now, you're talking about fighting terrorism. I go back to my point again. Just 2 days ago, if not today. Another bombing. So how can you tell me that you are fighting a man who is even more stronger than you, fighting you every day? The more you try, the more he fights you back. Now, even though US have to, whatever London, UK have said we should not negotiate, the Borno State governor knows what is happening in-house. He knows that the president at this point in time cannot, I mean my word, cannot legitimately bring those children back. So the best option as a father is what? Negotiation.
So what impact now, Chief, do you think that if negotiation, because I can read your reaction this far, if negotiation is what you both agree is the answer, what impact do you think this will be on the fight against terrorism in Nigeria?
I believe in life.
Okay.
I promote the culture of life. That's number one. In the hierarchy of priorities, in this dysfunctional situation where we found ourselves, the life of those girls is worth much more than the credibility of an illegitimate government. Quote me, I've said it before, it's not the first time. Google my name on the internet. Now, what I said is that I will not exclude any options. That's what I said.
Okay.
And that means that negotiation is included. Now, let me ask you from a practical point of view. The Boko Haram suspects we have, how valuable are they to our security? We have held them for a long time. So as far as I'm concerned, their interrogation would have been completed. We have the information we need on them. Now we have lost 40 days. If we had capacity to recover our children, okay, I can't even go further because the discussion is degenerating. If armed robbers are in your house and you phone RRS, how many minutes do you expect them to arrive? You answer the question. If armed robbers are in your house and you phone rapid response squad, how many minutes will you expect them to arrive? You want them to take 42 days? Excuse me, please. The discussion is degenerating. Let's stop this. Taking sides, and everybody's at risk. Armed robbers at your house right now, you phone RRS, Rapid Response Squad. How many minutes do you expect they will have? 42 days? Doctor said, you don't have the capacity to fight these people. You think he's not patriotic? I know him is ready to die for this country. It has taken 42 days. You're waiting. It's going to be 82. Then you're going to say, how did we get there? Just like how you waited for 5 years. We need the children back. Those criminal suspects are worthless. No option should be excluded to get our children back. And if it means we release them to Boko Haram, of course, we'll release first, because Boko Haram cannot be trusted. They are criminals. If it means that we agree, okay, give us our children, we'll give you your suspect. We'll give them our suspect and get our children back. And then plan how to protect our children. I agree with Abike Dabire. If my child is there, this thing you people are talking, I'm not going to listen to it. I will raise my own army and go to Sambisa.
Why have you not raised an army? Is it because your child is not involved yet?
Because your blood is not involved.
Listen. Authority and responsibility go together. I offered myself for you to vote for me. I've played my part. And I've told you, if you become president, if you become governor of Lagos State, the children of Lagos State become your children. That is why you're giving so much authority. It's not because you are more intelligent than other people. You are giving all that authority because of the big responsibility you have. Common sense. Authority and responsibility go together. Now, what resources do I have to raise a private army? When we have a country, whose responsibility is it? Is my title commander-in-chief?
But you just said now that if your child, so is it because these children belong to other people?
That's why you've not raised an army.
You've not raised an army?
That is why an illegitimate government has not raised an army. That's the answer.
Doctor.
It is because they belong to other people. If they realize it is their children, if they realize that by the positions they hold, those children are their children,
now
those children would have been recovered. And I'm telling you, it won't take 42 days. You have not responded in 42 days. Where are the children? You don't even know.
It takes us to the political arena of in Nigeria. How best should we play politics? As an opposition, or if you are an aspirant in an election and you are not being voted in to that position, what should the
what level of
participation?
participation?
Exactly. What participation do you have?
When you have a government, I hope you guys heard Senator McCain, that there's practically no government in Nigeria. He's not opposition. So be very careful with this taking sides.
There's nobody taking sides.
Taking sides will not change the facts.
There's no taking
sides. It won't change the facts. Senator McCain is not in Nigeria. Said that practically no government in Nigeria. What is the evidence of government? What is the duty of government? Security and welfare of the people. Where is the security of the Chibok girls? Now, let's go back to the fundamentals. You just showed on this very program today the Ekiti violence. Is that what you call election? You just showed it. I'm not your program manager. I watched it from your reception. Is that what you call election? That mayhem, is that election? 16 is greater than 19. You kept quiet and you're a journalist. Go and read the constitution for your role. You are the fourth arm of government. Maybe you don't realize that. And you're pushing the responsibility to me. The constitution does not assign any governance role to me. It assigns to you as a journalist. You are the fourth arm of government. What have you done? And you're asking me what I've done. And that's why I said the questions are even perverse. You did not ask the commander-in-chief what he has done. You have given him authority, you have given him responsibility, you have given him resources. That title commander-in-chief, do you think it's his fashion parade?
Dr. Ray, we'll get back to you, Chief. Does that mean that we have to sit back? Because we don't have the authority plus the responsibility. What's the role of the Nigerian people in all of this? That's the question that we're asking.
Nigerian people here. Now, there is a country that the president feels that there was something that happened. I think China or thereabout, one of the countries, if I'm not mistaken. The president resigned.
South Korea.
He resigned.
The prime minister.
So let's not be sentimental here. When you are not in control, it's like this management, there's a management here. And if the management feel that it cannot handle the place, the best thing is to bow out and allow people that can handle it. Now, the question here is this. When you start, whatever, let me quote from the good book. Whatever a man sow, he will reap. Nigerians are reaping what they sow.
Correct.
I want to frank with you.
Valid.
Nigerians are reaping what we sow. Because here we are too sentimental. Somebody was sacked from work or thereabout in Egypt. He burned himself and caused a revolution. At this point in time, calculate here, 12,000 people gone down the drain. Let me ask you this question. If you have an armed robber inside your house, asking you your life or your money, will you tell him, please wait, let me call the RRS? Or you give him the money?
Give him the money.
You're asking me?
That's common sense. Give him the money.
That if we have to negotiate, will you say, okay, let me call RRS, which you don't at the end of the day, they will take time to be there? First of all, you must save your life first.
Dr. Ray, let me take you back to the question. Are you saying categorically that the solution to this challenge is the resignation of Mr. President?
I think that's the most important.
If Mr. President resigns, who takes over?
Now, the question
We have a
is,
constitution.
it's not about who takes over.
We have a
here.
constitution. Yes,
It's not about
we
who
have a
takes over here. Because the problem here, if he bows down, and that is wonderful. That is wonderful. If he bows out at this point in time, first of all, are we still under colonialism? This is a president. Have you listened to the African leaders at the AU meeting? This is a president that have to call US. I was reading one of the reports that tells you that the satellite dish we even have was just like a mere toy. And somebody went out there and buys those things in trillions, deceiving Nigeria. I'm not saying that Boko Haram was nice, but it has revealed all the secret agendas. And what makes a leader is the opportunity to do what? To manage to manage the lives and property of the people in that state.
For the sake of for the benefit of the viewership, I want us to drive this discussion towards a particular, drive it home. We are asking for the solution, and you recommended earlier that leadership has failed.
Definitely.
And they should take up responsibility. That was why I referred to South Korea.
Definitely.
Now, if the president resigns, are you saying that possibly the vice president has the character, has
this
the
is not about
leadership
vice
trait to take
This is
it
not about
up
vice
from
presidency.
there?
I suggest that let's get somebody with integrity. Let's put the
That
system
would be
right.
in an election, obviously. There's no provision that Mr. President leaves and
Yes,
then
why
there
not
is
recall
now
interim government?
a referendum
Did
to
you
choose
see what is
another
happening in
person.
the national conference? It's now a child's play. Where Nigerians are spending trillions, and after that conference, they will come back and tell you we spent trillions. Just sitting and talking. So we have to leave the level of jamboree and get into leadership. Nigeria needs somebody like Obama. Someone that is directive, proactive, not a rhetoric.
Let's get back to this negotiation issue. Chief, the Northern, what's the name again? The Northern Governors Forum Chairman, Ali Babangida, called on Abdulsalami Abubakar recently to rally past leaders in a way to, connect with these Boko Haram people and kickstart a dialogue. What do you think is the role of those past leaders in northern Nigeria in all of this?
Well, I don't know their role. I don't belong to them. Leadership did not start failing from Dr. Jonathan, but we can't deceive ourselves that it is not worse. Because with the other failed leaderships, Abacha looked, how much were we talking about? We're talking about $3 billion. Today, what are we talking about missing funds? $20 billion. So nobody is saying that all the evil in Nigeria started in 2009. We're saying that the leadership is supposed to try to improve the circumstances of the people. And that's what we're trying to say. About the girls, nothing should be excluded. We need our children back. Instead of our children to perish, we should perish. That is the right mentality. And if all we have to exchange are vagabonds and idiotic Boko Haram suspects, if that's the way to get our children back, and I believe that's the way to go now, because if we had the capacity to bring back those girls, we would have brought them back. 42 days, we have not brought them back. Just like the parent on TV was saying yesterday that they are beginning to lose hope. I think that's natural. I'm not receiving any good news that we have capacity to bring these girls back. Based on that, I will not exclude any options. The right thing will be to get the terrorists and to deal with them according to law. But since we have a dysfunctional situation, we're not able to do that. And we have to save our children. Therefore, nothing should be excluded. About Britain, do you want us to go back to colonialism? They can advise us, but they can't dictate if we're independent. It's not really about Nigeria, every independent country. That's what the meaning of independence. So you can't claim you're independent and you also reject your independence. So if we're independent, yes, They can advise us, but they can't dictate. And the way it is now, if you see that one option is not working, that's the right option. The right option is to grab criminals, arrest them, to try them, convict them, and deal with them according to law. That's the right option. If you're not able to do it, what does common sense suggest? Especially when the lives of children are at stake. The other option that is obvious is discuss with Boko Haram. Okay, we give you amnesty, just like we give to the people in the Niger Delta. Give us our girls back. We let you and your suspects stop your trade. It's all part of a negotiation. But before you can make a plan, you must be clear about your objective. My objective at this point, which we should not have gotten to in the first place, and Yoweri Museveni said it's impossible to have this situation in Uganda. He's the incumbent president of Uganda. And then the president of Rwanda said African leaders should accept responsibility for their failures. First step, Jonathan and Sambo came on the same ticket. If they are man enough to accept that they have failed, they can resign. If they think that they can get Boko Haram, they should get Boko Haram.
Thank you very much. We have as our guests this morning Chief Martin ONOVO, and of course we have Dr. Ray Ashinewe. We'll take a pause from Core Digest, and the topic for discussion this morning is abducted girls. Is negotiation the way out? If we're saying yes to negotiation, some have said if we negotiate, won't it pave way for more of the activities of Boko Haram? And some have said, no, you don't negotiate with terrorists. So we're caught in between. Which should we do? Negotiate or not negotiate? So we'll take a break to bring you the news at 10. And of course, we still have a guest in the studio to talk more after then. Thank you for being there.
On the day list this morning, Nigerians encourage corruption, cites University of the Punch newspaper. A new Nigerian Governors Forum calls for Okonjo Iweala's resignation. Page 2 of the Punch newspaper. The dailies every day on Core TV News.
I don't think the election was actually... What are the people saying?
5 local government out of the 30 local government is more than many states in the north.
The economy is booming. Where is the economy booming? Bomb blast in Abuja.
Don't we have security?
Why are we fighting?
The presidency should not just sit in Abuja or in Asokoro or wherever he lives.
The are sponsoring the Boko Haram. They know them.
Men cannot be there and be there at the same time.
The life of the citizens, community need to be protected.
It can't work out.
Bring the message of peace.
Let there be proper devolution of power from the center. The center is too powerful.
The people, only on Core TV News.